On the verge of starvation, Van, sporting a tuxedo and cowboy hat, enters a church looking for food, but he encounters some thieves gunning down others and a 12-year-old girl named Wendy Garrett. However, she didn't die since her turtle pendant blocked the bullet. Van doesn't want trouble, but seeing that those guys are troublemakers, he easily takes them out with his strange sword. After being rescued, Wendy graciously brings him back to her town of Evergreen, where she treats him to lunch. Van meets the mayor of Evergreen, who asks for Van's help. He explains that Evergreen is under siege by a gang called the Wild Bunch, led by their boss, Lucky Roulette. Lucky then makes an appearance in the town, making a public threat that he will attack the town if they don't hand over their vault. The mayor begs for Van's help, but he refuses to get involved because this is not his problem. That evening, Van stumbles into a bar and comes across Lucky and his gang. Lucky challenges Van to a card game, with the loser being the one who finds the Joker. Van questions why Lucky is so obsessed with luck, and he tells him it is the one thing in God's domain that can't be learned. Van asks if Lucky will let him leave unharmed if he wins, and Lucky agrees, telling him he only shoots people when he's looking them in the eye, a personal code of his. After a tense game, Van draws the Joker and is thrown out by Lucky's gang. Outside, Van is confronted by Wendy, who is frustrated by Van not helping out the town. She offers to become his wife if he helps them. Van is shocked by this and tells Wendy to get out of town. He leaves her and walks down an alley, only to be shot from behind by Lucky Roulette. However, due to his reconstructed body, Van is able to heal himself. The next day, Lucky attacks the town with his armor. Because he roughs up Wendy, Van comes to her rescue and has decided to crush all of Lucky's luck. We see him kick ass with his agility and his sword. Van finally summons his armor, Dan. It's time to change Lucky's name to Unlucky, and that's the end of his lucky streak. After Van defeats Lucky, Van and Wendy confront Lucky about the whereabouts of Michael Garrett, Wendy's brother. Lucky says he sold Michael to a man with a claw on his right hand a week ago, but he doesn't know where they are now. Van is enraged. He is after the claw for killing his bride. The next day, when Van leaves to continue his search for the claw, Wendy informs him she is joining him because she intends to rescue her brother. Nothing Van can say will convince her otherwise. Whether he likes it or not, he has a companion. Van and Wendy enter a town called Bridge City. While staying at a hotel, Van meets an old friend nicknamed Carmen 99, who offers her services as an information broker, knowing Van is looking for information on the claw. They learn that the main gate out of the town has been closed due to construction, preventing the residents from crossing the bridge. Van, Wendy, and Carmen head to a town meeting to find out more information. The leader of the town, Baron Mayer, makes a public announcement to the town. He informs his citizens that the bridge will be closed for a while due to maintenance, but he will allow any female citizens to pass through via the underground tunnels. This allows Carmen and Wendy the opportunity to cross, but Van must stay behind. Carmen asks Van to investigate the Baron's office, showing him a picture of a cannon concealed in the city, which Van assumes is an armor. Van discovers the Baron's plan. He has built immense armor under the guise of repairing the bridge. He captures 200 women as slaves for his utopian nation, the wonderful Yoral nation. Among the hostages are Wendy and Carmen 99. Van comes and fights off Baron and his minions, while Wendy and Carmen 99 guide the other women outside. The Baron then summons his armor, called Metal Guru. Van summons Dan and fights until Metal Guru appears to defeat Dan with a massive cannon shot. In reality, Van was waiting for such an attack to reveal Metal Guru's power source, and he uses Dan's defeat to draw the Baron and where Dan can strike, destroying Metal Guru. In the aftermath, Van interrogates a man who confirms that the Claw and Wendy's brother have passed through the town. He and Wendy say goodbye to Carmen and head onward to their next adventure. Arriving in the town of Gloria, Wendy drags an unconscious Van to a nearby restaurant called the Pink Amigo. She receives help from the owner of the restaurant, Yukiko, who helps wake Van up. Yukiko provides Van and Wendy with a meal, and some local old-timers Nero, Jose, Carlos, and Barrio overhear Van's name. They introduce themselves to Van, noting that he is the one who dealt with the Baron Mayer in Bridge City. Nero, Jose, Carlos, and Barrio are the 4 surviving members of a 5-member armor rider team known as the Eldorado 5. Along with Chizuru, Yukiko's past grandmother, they protected the town long ago with their armor called the Eldora 5. They can tend to get loud and obnoxious in their reminiscing of the old days, which annoys the younger generation, who don't believe the tales. Yukiko often calms them down with her singing voice, reminding them of her deceased grandmother. That evening, Wendy stays with Yukiko and tells Yukiko of her adventures. Yukiko longs to travel too, but she has an obligation to the Pink Amigo restaurant that she inherited from her grandmother. Van spends the evening with the Eldorado 5, and they take him to their hideout at an old temple. They talk with him about armor and their adventures with Chizuru, who is no longer with them. Van sadly notes that he will be dead soon too. Barrio offers him a drink, but Van objects. Regardless, he is forced to have a few sips of tequila and passes out. Later, after the four are imprisoned for reckless behavior, a mad scientist named Bucci suddenly attacks the town with the armor he invented. Wendy asks Van to intervene on the town's behalf, but he seems unwilling to help. The Eldorado are released from jail in order to defend the town from Bucci's armor, piloting their own armor. It is quickly evident that their individual armors are no match for Bucci's, so they combine to form the humanoid Eldorado 5. But without the fifth component, Chizuru's energy booster pack, they are still no match against Bucci's modern armor. Finally, Van uses Dan to quickly launch the fifth component to join the Eldorado 5. Once all five are joined, Eldorado defeats Bucci's armor and saves Gloria. The Eldorado saves Bucci from his armor's destruction and implores him to apologize, which he does profusely. They say that he can atone for his crimes and then come back to the town. The townspeople celebrate the old-timers' victory, giving them a chance to relive the glory days and prove to the younger generation that they really were heroes all along. Van and Wendy then have a group photo with the Eldorado and Yukiko before leaving. While traveling through a forest, Van rescues Wendy from being harassed by a thug piloting a small armor, but shortly afterwards he collapses with a high fever. Wendy manages to drag the unconscious Van to a cave for shelter. While taking care of him, Wendy discovers a strange symbol on Van's abdomen. As his fever worsens through the night, she travels on her own to the nearest town, St. Elixir, to get help. Although she is unsuccessful in getting help initially, she meets a kind nurse, Marie, who brings her to a private clinic to meet a doctor. Wendy follows Marie to the Dennehy clinic. She meets the doctor, Dr. Dennehy, a disabled but capable man who offers to help. Wendy shows him the symbol she saw on Van. He offers her the remedy for it, appearing to have knowledge of it. While Wendy is gone, Van's fever breaks, although he is still under the weather. He realizes his illness is a result of him not using Dan in a while, whom his life and well-being are connected to. He manages to summon Dan, but has to walk through the forest to get to him. While recuperating inside Dan, Van has memories of the day he lost his wife, remembering the man with the clawed hand who killed her. Meanwhile, Wendy rushes back to Van, but is confronted by a boar. Desperate to get back to Van, Wendy points her gun at the animal, remembering the day her brother Michael gave her the weapon. She returns to the cave to find Van gone. She is at a loss but is suddenly confronted with the thug from earlier, who returns with friends looking for payback. They are more than willing to take it out on her. Van makes a sudden reappearance in Dan just in time to save Wendy from the thugs. Van tells Wendy he is much better. Wendy offers him the bag of medicine she retrieved for him, but suddenly faints. Van realizes she is sick now. Wendy wakes up in the cave next to a cozy fire, surprised to be covered in Van's tuxedo jacket. He tells her to get some rest as she is still unwell, but she appears grateful to Wendy for taking care of him. Back at the Dennehy clinic, a knock at the door interrupts Dennehy's musing over the drawing Wendy made of Van's mark. Marie answers the door to reveal a dangerous-looking blonde man in a white coat. He asks for information on a man with a clawed hand. Van and Wendy find themselves in a town inside a ravine ruled by identical twin sisters who hate each other. The twins fight to claim their deceased father's inheritance all for themselves, locked behind a large vault at the end of the town, B510. Carmen meets up with Van and informs him that he can get information about the claw if he becomes one side's bodyguard. He will then have to do battle with another hired gun on the opposite side to determine the winner between the two sisters. Van is hired by Earl Driver, and another man named Ray Lundgren is hired by her sister, El Driver. After a few initial hostilities, Van discovers that Ray, likewise, is hunting the claw for exactly the same reason. However, Ray's desire for revenge has turned him cold, heartless, and determined to succeed at any cost, whether it be to himself or others. That evening, Carmen reveals to Wendy the truth about Van's past. His wife was murdered by the claw on their wedding day. The next day, Van and Ray are set to duel on behalf of the sisters, but Ray swiftly shoots Earl, injuring her. He then grabs her half of the key and along with Elle, unlocks the vault. The injured Earl asks Van to take her to the vault so she can see her father's inheritance. Arriving inside the vault, Ray and Elle find massive armor and numerous test pods with decomposing bodies. Van and Earl arrive, but take cover as Ray shoots at them. Elle gloats that the inheritance is all for her, but suddenly a video activates, and Elle is shocked to see her father. Her father's recorded message was left for his comrade and details the experiments performed in this town. He attempted to genetically engineer various twin test subjects for a dual-piloted armor, Twin Lock, at the request of his comrade. However, the experiment was a failure as all the twins ended up hating each other, with a pathogen outbreak killing almost everyone. Having heard enough, Ray shoots the screen. Earl and Elle are shocked to learn that they were genetically engineered, with Elle asking Ray if all that was true. When she persists, Ray quickly shoots her in the side to get her off him. Van fights Ray off as Elle and Earl come to an understanding with one another. They decide to pilot the armor twin lock to make their father proud. Suddenly, the entire town starts to shake and crumble, and Ray's armor, Valkyne, comes tunneling up from the ground towards Ray. Realizing the deal has gone south, Carmen finds and takes 2 golden decorations set with large colored stones as compensation for her trouble, and she escapes with Wendy, leaving Van to take care of himself. Fearing the destruction the twins could wreak in their armor, Van summons Dan but tries reasoning with them. Ray has no such compulsion, and after summoning his armor, he strikes decisively and violently, destroying the armor with the twins still in it despite Van's interference. Van emerges from the smoking crater alone to rejoin Wendy and Carmen, who then take off, leaving the 2 of them to continue their trek across the desert. Van and Wendy continue on to a port town called Harbor Parade. 2 lawless lovebirds, nicknamed Muscat and Honey Cherry, try to finance their wedding by repeatedly attempting to steal Van's armor. The entire day, we see these idiots not giving up and even chasing them with their mecha. So in their latest attempt, they stumble into Tony, a mafia boss who comes looking for a piece of the action. It is revealed that Tony is actually Honey Cherry's father and that her real name is Bunny Montana. Tony is enraged that Muscat, whose real name is Clat, remodeled his armor into a green and pink car named the Love Deluxe. He has his men take them away. Disgraced by the defilement, Tony initially asks Honey Cherry to kill Muscat, but Wendy urges Van to help, and so he comes to the rescue. Confronted by Van, Tony summons his own armor, and Van realizes what passes for armor in Tony's mind is a tricked-out car, tricked to the hilt and impressive, but no match for the real thing. Van easily defeats Tony's armor, and the couple decides to sell what remains of Tony's car to pay for their wedding. Van and Wendy learn that the Claw and Michael were just in town but had left on a boat. Van and Wendy take a ship to go after the Claw Man. However, they are tricked and dumped on a remote island, where a mysterious man of great wealth is named Joe Lutz. He welcomes them into his palatial estate until another boat passes the island in 10 days. Although the 2 feel that there is something eerie about him, they have no choice but to accept his hospitality. Joe is nothing but friendly and caring as he makes the 2 feel at home, offering quiet counsel and using his vast resources to aid them in their quest to track the Claw, giving his guests hope that their stay will not put them too far behind. Even the suspicious Van finds himself coming to appreciate Joe's compassion and opening up about his quest for vengeance. With been there, did that reasoning, Joe tries to convince Van that even if he were to succeed, Van would find his victory hollow, and he asks Van if this violent quest would be something Van's wife would condone. Separately, Joe has also convinced Wendy that it is obvious that the Claw never intended to kill Michael. He tells her that she would be wiser to return to Evergreen, as Michael would likely look for her there if the Claw released him. Joe is smooth and convincing, and it appears his gentle approach is effectively separating the 2 seekers and derailing their intent to continue, but after some deep soul-searching, Van figures out exactly what Joe is doing. Discovered, Joe reveals his true colors, summoning his armor, the Golden Cradle. He is an ally of the Claws, and has been toying with Van and Wendy to stop their threat to his comrade. Van summons his armor, and the resulting destruction sends the inhabitants of the island fleeing for their lives. The Golden Cradle is powerful, but Joe doesn't have Van's skill and cunning, and Joe is defeated. Kneeling at Dan's feet, Joe offers one last sacrifice to the friend he is working for, the Claw, and sacrificially detonates his armor, but when the smoke clears, Dan is still standing. Resuming their journey, Van realizes it has just gotten harder. The Claw has friends, and he knows Van is coming after him, but his resolve remains unshaken, and when he asks, Wendy remains committed as well. Van and Wendy are traveling over a hilly trail when they are attacked by armor shaped like a dragon. An awkward boy named Joshua Lundgren tries to help them, but Van loses his sword. He wants Joshua to be a decoy while he goes to get it. Joshua gets up to do it, but chickens out and puts Van in danger. Suddenly, the dragon was shot, forcing the armored dragon to retreat. Ray shows up in his armor, called the Valkyne. Ray is Joshua's older brother, and despite Joshua's calls for him to return, stubborn Ray will not. Wendy empathizes with Joshua, seeing that he's trying to find his brother, a similar goal to her own. Van finds Joshua irritating and leaves to investigate on his own. Wendy and Joshua work together to learn more about the dragon armor. Meanwhile, Van and Ray meet again at a restaurant in town, where Ray reveals a plan to defeat the dragon armor if Van will help. It requires Van to hold the dragon immobile while Ray shoots at what he perceives as its weak point. Back in town, Joshua reveals himself to be an expert on armor. He had a close relationship with Ray's wife, Shino, who worked in an experimental lab that designed armor. He realizes there is a vulnerability that can be exploited in the dragon armor that Ray is unaware of. Wendy and Joshua run back to the mountain to tell the armor riders, but Ray won't listen. Luckily, Van does. So Van borrows Ray's gun and shoots at its weak spot to immediately immobilize the threat. When they enter the mecha, they discover the pilot inside the dragon armor is long dead and the thing has been running on autopilot. Van also discovers a data disk and prevents Ray from taking it away. Since Van has the data, he needs somebody to interpret it, and the next town over might be a good start. Joshua thinks of joining them since there is a chance he'll meet with Ray again, and much to Van's frustration, they continue as a group of 3. Van, Wendy, and Joshua hitchhike with Carmen to her hometown, Trinolia. Van knows of an engineer who lives there who should be able to crack the data disk recovered from the dragon armor. Carmen reunites with her childhood friend Hayata, the daughter of an engineer named Findley, who just happens to be the engineer Van was seeking. Hayata declines Van's request because her father is now crippled and in poor health, but Findley overhears Van's request and accepts it. While Wendy and Joshua stay at Carmen's house to spruce up, Van goes with Carmen to her old school, where she explains that Findley and her father had been business partners and that Findley had fostered her after the deaths of her parents. The town has prospered in the last 6 years thanks to a special flower Hayata has helped cultivate. But Joshua overhears a conversation between Hayata and a visitor and realizes Hayata is growing the flowers for the claw. He runs and tells Carmen, but knowing Van's reaction, she orders Joshua not to tell him until she has gathered more information. She goes to Uncle Findley. She finds him collapsed in his lab, and he reveals the flowers are a drug that makes people happy, but it has horrible side effects. Inhaling its pollen without the proper antibodies causes debilitating physical side effects, which are the cause of his poor health and crippling. The visitor supplies them with the medicine, but even with it, long-term, the pollen still causes problems. He begs Carmen to stop his daughter and destroy the flowers before they destroy the town. Carmen goes to confront Hayata. Their talk is interrupted by smoke coming from Hayata's house. Wendy had made her own discoveries about the flowers. Trying to identify the flower Hayata is growing, Wendy inhaled too much pollen and collapsed, and then woke up joyful and hyper to an extreme degree. Seeking to find out what ailed his young companion, Van started looking for answers and found them in Findley. Hayata has been growing the flowers for the claw. Findley can no longer bear knowing what his daughter has done or knowing that he let her do it. He willingly turns over the medicine to help Wendy and returns the disc, apologizing for not completing the job. Finally, he asks Van to carry a message for him, and then he sets fire to their house. When Hayata and Carmen arrive, Van says Findley chose to die in atonement for his daughter's crimes and to free her from her obligation to the claw. As things end, Carmen has lost her childhood friend and is no longer welcome in Trinolia, and Van is no closer to finding the claw despite having the disc. Carmen takes it, offering to bring it to another engineer, and they hope it will have been deciphered by the time Van and crew catch up. As Carmen's aircar travels, she pauses to watch as Hayata burns the flower field and then leaves. After arriving at the seaside city of Meunier, Van, Wendy, and Joshua plan to take the train to Zonnet Junction to rendezvous with Carmen. However, their plans take a detour when the railway is attacked by pirates. Vivian, a foreman with a local salvage union, asks Van to assist in stopping the pirates in their next operation to retrieve an enormous metal coffin from the ocean floor. Van agrees when he hears the reward includes express tickets to Zonnet Junction. In the meantime, Carmen has an analyst look at the data board at Zonnet Junction. She also asks him to look at the 2 gold ornaments she acquired at B510. Vivian's team begins to recover the coffin from the seabed with a crane. Unfortunately, a cunning seaman named Kaiji, the captain of the pirate submarine, destroys the crane and freezes the water. His plan is to steal the coffin from under frozen surface. While the Union tries to break through the ice, Van summons his armor and faces the pirates underwater, though struggling to maneuver against their torpedoes serves as a disadvantage. Joshua comes up with a brilliant plan to detonate the ice with his precise calculation. The destruction of the ice is successful, and during this commotion, Van is able to defeat the pirates when they resurface after the Union shatters the ice. Van, Wendy, and Joshua are paid by Vivian for their troubles and take the recovered artifact by train to Zonnet Junction. It is here that Wendy finally spots her brother after all this time. Wendy is shocked to find her brother Michael at the train station. She runs across the tracks just to see him. Van and Joshua lose track of Wendy when the train passes by, having to split up to go search for her. Wendy is surprised to know that Michael has sided with the Claw, thereby supporting his cause. Michael then tells Wendy to return home to Evergreen as he departs. The large coffin from Meunier arrives at the station and is overseen by the researcher and Zipira Maraka. Gad, a member of the original 7, observes the coffin, pleased to finally have it in their possession. He mentions something about the best of writers in store for the contents of the coffin. Joshua and Van try to look for Wendy but are unsuccessful. Joshua looks in the women's bathroom but is quickly arrested by the station's security. Van continues to look for Wendy until a small child bumps into him. He demands an apology from her, but she starts to cry. Before he can comfort her, another youngster jumps out and kicks him away. Van realizes the two children are twins. Before he can interact with them, a blonde man appears to guide the children away. He gives Van a stern warning, which shocks Van, but the trio leave before Van can do anything about it. Carmen is pleased with what she was able to learn from the data board and heads to meet Van and the others. After Carmen meets up with Joshua, the two see an angry Van after hearing that Wendy saw her brother but did not inform him, hence missing a crucial opportunity to find the claw. He tells Wendy to go home like her brother suggested since she has no reason to go on anymore. Meanwhile, the metal coffin retrieved from Munier arrives at Zonnet Junction. Michael and his comrades witness its opening to reveal the first armor of the original 7, called the Showdown of Sunday. The original 7 oversee Michael bonding with Showdown of Sunday, allowing him to ride the armor. Gab asks Fazolina to see the operation initiated so he can confront Van. At a loss, Wendy waits for a train to Evergreen but is found by Joshua, who tries to reassure her that her pursuit of her brother is right. Van and Carmen have a quarrel in which he tells her he no longer has any use for the data board she had analyzed. Van tells Carmen that the claw is likely here, and he can use Wendy to lure her brother and then the claw out into the open. Carmen chastises him, noting that the claw wouldn't be so reckless as to walk around in the open. Van tells her he has nothing to do with her and leaves her. Gad, who is a former friend of Van, appears before him, asking him to join the reestablished original 7. Van and Gad recall Van's wedding day, where he and his wife Alina were both critically injured by the claw. Alina and Gav put Van through the reconstruction so he could survive. Van rejects Gav's offer to join the 7, as his only goal is to see revenge for Alina's death by killing the claw. When Gav reveals he is now working for the claw, Van becomes enraged and challenges him to a duel. Fazolina, the woman who introduced the poisonous flower to Hayata, confronts Carmen at the train station, stealing the data board. Joshua loses sight of Wendy, who wanders through the sky park within the train station and meets a kind, elderly man. They discuss how dreams make lives meaningful. Carmen, beaten by Fazolina, activates her tracking device so she can retrieve the data board Fazolina stole from her. Van and Gab headed outside of the station and summoned their armor, ready to face each other in battle. As Joshua finds Wendy, Fazolina gives the old man she was talking to his prosthetic clawed hand. Wendy is horrified to learn of his true identity, but she hardly has time to react when Ray appears and prepares to shoot the claw dead. Thank you for watching till the end, and please don't forget to subscribe.